$1 million. That's what it costs to bury a lieutenant of the most feared cartel in the world. Not the boss, a lieutenant. And the man at the top, the one who ordered the funeral, is still out there, still running, still worth a $10 million reward from the United States government, still untouchable. His name is Mencho, and the funeral nobody expected revealed more about his power than any raid, any arrest, or any government press conference ever has. Stay until Chapter 4, because the most disturbing part of this story is not what happened at the funeral. It's what the Mexican government did not do when it found out. Armored vehicles, narco corrido bands playing live, hundreds of armed men in coordinated uniforms standing at attention beside a gold-trimmed coffin in broad daylight in a town the government technically controls. This is what power looks like when it stops hiding. The cartel that replaced them all, the verdict, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, the CJNG, is now considered by the United States Drug Enforcement Administration to be the most powerful and most dangerous criminal organization in the world. It operates in over 30 American states. It controls territory across 23 of Mexico's 32 states, and its leader has been a fugitive for over a decade. The Gap, 10 years ago, almost nobody outside of law enforcement had heard of El Mencho. The Sinaloa cartel, El Chapo's empire, dominated every headline. The CJNG was a regional player. A footnote: The Journey. Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes was born in Michoacan in 1966 into a family with no wealth, no political connections, and no obvious path to anything. He worked briefly as a police officer in Jalisco, which tells you everything about how institutional boundaries operated in that world. He then entered the drug trade as a mid-level operator for an existing organization before breaking away to build something entirely his own. What he built was not modeled on El Chapo's logistics empire. It was modeled on fear. The scene. In 2015, the CJNG released a video that circulated globally within hours. Dozens of uniformed men, armed with military-grade weapons, standing in formation in the Mexican countryside. A masked figure at the center delivered a direct message to rival cartels and to the Mexican government. The CJNG was here. It was organized, and it was not negotiating. The video was produced with the precision of a military recruitment film. It was the moment the world understood something had changed in Mexican organized crime. The lesson: the most dangerous organization is not the one that controls the most territory. It's the one that controls how it is perceived. What a narco funeral costs the verdict. When a senior CJNG figure dies, whether from a rival hit, a military operation, or any other cause, the organization does not hold a quiet burial. It holds a demonstration. The Gap: most criminal organizations bury their dead in secret. Visibility means vulnerability. The logic of survival demands discretion. The CJNG operates on a different logic entirely. The Journey. Narco funerals in CJNG territory have become a documented phenomenon studied by journalists, law enforcement analysts, and academic researchers tracking organized crime in Mexico. The pattern is consistent: professional floral arrangements worth tens of thousands of dollars, live musical performances by narco corrido artists, caravans of armored vehicles, and a visible display of armed personnel that functions less like a funeral and more like a military parade. The cost of a senior-level CJNG funeral, based on documented estimates from Mexican investigative journalists, runs between $500,000 and $1 million. That figure covers logistics, security, musicians, and the flowers alone, which in several documented cases filled entire city blocks. The scene. In one documented funeral in Jalisco, footage of which circulated on social media before authorities could suppress it, mourners arrived in a convoy of over 40 vehicles, many of them modified pickup trucks with reinforced frames and tinted windows. A live band performed for hours. The coffin was trimmed in gold. The entire event took place in a municipality where federal security forces had a permanent presence. Those forces were not seen in the footage. The twist: the cost of the funeral was not a display of wealth. It was a display of jurisdiction. The message was not, "We have money." The message was, "We do this here, in public, and nothing happens." The lesson: the most expensive line item in a narco funeral is not the flowers. It's the silence. It buys from everyone Who could have stopped it? The music nobody could shut down the verdict. Narco corridos, ballads that chronicled the lives and deaths of cartel figures, are banned from radio stations across multiple Mexican states. They play anyway, at full volume, at funerals like this one. The Gap. The Mexican government has made repeated attempts to regulate, restrict, and suppress narco corrido culture. Mayors have issued bans, governors have made announcements, broadcasters have complied. The artists still perform. The crowds still gather. The music still plays. Here's the question nobody in Mexican politics wants to answer. If the government cannot stop a band from playing at a cartel funeral, what exactly can it stop? Drop your verdict in the comments. The journey. The narco corrido tradition dates back decades in northern Mexico, rooted in a folk music style that has always documented the lives of outlaws and regional heroes. What changed in the last 20 years is the scale, the production value, and the direct financial relationship between cartel organizations and the artists who perform for them. Several of Mexico's most popular corrido artists have publicly stated they receive requests, not invitations, to perform at cartel events. Declining is understood, by everyone involved, to be a complicated decision. The scene. At the funeral in question, one of the performing groups played for over 3 hours. Attendees filmed and posted the performance in real time. The videos accumulated millions of views before platforms removed them, which took, in some cases, over 48 hours. By then, the footage had been downloaded and redistributed across dozens of secondary accounts. The government's response was a press statement issued the following morning. The lesson: when a criminal organization can generate millions of views for its own funeral in real time, it has solved the propaganda problem that most governments spend billions trying to address. The government that wasn't there. The verdict: Mexican federal authorities knew about the funeral in advance. They did not intervene. The Gap. This is not an allegation. It is a documented pattern confirmed by multiple Mexican investigative journalists and referenced in United States government reports on CJNG operations. The journey. The CJNG's expansion over the past decade has been studied extensively by American law enforcement agencies. The DEA's own reporting consistently notes that the organization's resilience is not purely a function of its military capacity, though that capacity is significant. It is a function of its institutional penetration. Local police, municipal governments, and in documented cases, federal officials have been identified as recipients of CJNG payments in exchange for advance warning of operations, non-interference agreements, and active intelligence sharing. $1 million funeral held in public, in broad daylight, with hundreds of armed attendees, does not happen without someone making a decision not to act. The scene. In the days following the funeral, a Mexican senator raised the event in a congressional session, demanding an explanation from the Interior Ministry for why no intervention had occurred. The response, delivered in writing, stated that authorities had conducted a risk assessment and determined that intervention could have provoked a violent confrontation that endangered civilians. The senator's follow-up question, never formally answered, was simple. If the state cannot intervene at a public event with hundreds of armed men, what territory does the state actually control? The lesson, the most revealing moment in any narco funeral, is not what the cartel does, it's what the government doesn't. The verdict, El Mencho, is still out there. $10 million. That is the reward the United States government offers for information leading to his capture. It has been on the table for years. He remains, as of the time of this video, the most wanted drug trafficker in the world. More wanted than El Chapo was at any point before his final arrest. And yet, the CJNG holds funerals in public, with live music, with gold-trimmed coffins, with armed convoys, moving through towns where federal forces maintain a theoretical presence. Here is what $1 million narco funeral actually buys. It buys proof, not for the cartel's enemies they already know, not for the public they can see it, for the organization's own members. A funeral like this is institutional confirmation. We are here. We are permanent. And the forces designed to stop us have already made their calculation. At the beginning of this video, $1 million sounded like an obscene amount to spend on a burial. By now, it sounds like a bargain, Because what that $1 million purchased was not a funeral. It was a press conference, a territorial declaration, a demonstration of sovereignty in a country with a government that responded with a written statement the following morning. Here is the question this story leaves behind. Is El Mencho more powerful than El Chapo ever was? Not because he built a bigger empire, but because he never had to hide it. Be honest with yourself. Next video. The man who built a legal empire worth hundreds of billions using the same distribution logic as a drug cartel, and the reason nobody calls it that. Subscribe. It drops this week. See you in the next one.